Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm one of these kind of people myself. I don't have any issues backpedaling, backtracking on something that I've said before, on something that I've learnt before, if new evidence comes to light. If I find something new out, if I have a revelation, I have no issues admitting that I was wrong in the past. And over the past couple of months, as I've discussed before, I've had a very intense period. I had a period of prolonged illness, and it taught me a lot about life. And I want to make a video on that today. So for a bit of context, I want to share my opinions on life prior to this. And really, they were quite key or core still to what I believe in today. I believe, and perhaps always have believed, in the concept of trying to do your best. I believed in the concept of always trying to strive for excellence and those sorts of things. And I've always held myself to those levels, to the best of my ability. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm 21 years old, and I'm going to make mistakes along the way. I think this goes without saying. I don't know everything, and I don't claim to know everything. I would actually argue that I know very little. Out of the whole knowledge of the world, even out of the whole of the knowledge of stuff that I can know, I probably don't know that much. So I've always tried to achieve the best, and I think you could say subsequently or consequently, I've always kind of expected people around me to also do that. And that's always worked out quite well for me, I think. Trying my best I don't think can ever be a bad thing. It's given me a lot of unique experiences. It's given me a lot of unique advantages, and I do still agree with that. However, the way that I approach this now and the overall view that I have on this is certainly shifting. Now, the thing is, and I'm not going to say anything otherwise ever, I do still expect very high standards of myself. I do still have a very clear mission of what I want to achieve. I think a lot of people, when I make a video like this, might think that I've changed my entire approach. No. My approach overall is going to be the same. Still want to do well in business. When I get my health fully back, I still want to go to the gym and try as hard as I can. I still want to be the best person I can for myself and for other people. I know what I think that means. And as I've said before, guys, I don't care if other people agree with that or not. When you put yourself on the internet and share your opinions, undeniably, unreasonably, you get the ability or the possibility that people will disagree with you, and that's fine. So I can talk about something that I'm doing which I like, or that I think is a big, strong move. I can have someone in the comment section say, no, it's not enough, you should be doing more. What I think these people fail to understand is that life is subjective. As I said, I still expect high standards from myself in terms of business, money making, attitude, but now I'm starting to understand how that is different for other people. Not everybody should aim to the top. And it wouldn't work if they did, if you have a think about this. Not everybody can be a six-figure entrepreneur. And again, previously I always believed that yes, they can. Of course they can. No, I don't think that they can. I really don't. I don't think that everybody can. That's not because their circumstances mean that they can't. Maybe in some instances it does result in that, or is because of that. But a lot of the time it's because they don't have the traits of leadership or the desire. Not everybody wants to be rich. Not everybody should want to be rich. And richness can be measured in other ways. This should go without saying. And this is something that I've always known. But, when we speak about this on a deeper level, it's different things for different people, guys. I know people who are very, very happy with very little money in their pockets, in their accounts. That's okay. I know people who work a 9 to 5. That's okay. And if anybody else wants to do that sort of stuff, that's okay. In this modern world, especially when people achieve success in a certain field, we naturally have a bit of a bias that we are doing the right thing. Well, the reality of that is subjective. We are doing the right thing for us. Running a business is the right thing for me. It works well for me. It's something that I like doing. It just works for me. I like going to the gym. Some people don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. So now, what I like to do a lot more is approach things in a different way. I'm trying to explain how I mean this. I try and do my best in the things that I do. To some people, that's not going to be good enough. Other people try to do the best in the things that they do. And especially when you find a way to fix something, you want to share that with people that you know, people that you like, people that you care about. So for example, let's say the business stuff, right? You guys know I've been running my eBay store for a very long time. The last job that I had was in December. Yeah, December. I don't need another job now all year, right? Probably for the next 2 years. And that's all because of the business stuff, to be honest. That's good. So when I hear people talking about their jobs and saying how much they hate it, and they do mean it, because I know the people very deeply. Previously, I always thought, well, I can show you the way to fix it, or we can discuss it, or we can at least mean that you can cut your hours down or something like that, right? And I always got kind of frustrated in a way, if I'm being honest, when people didn't listen. Like, you say you hate your job. Why do you not want to find this way out? Because life is subjective. And also, there's only one person who you can truly influence. And that's yourself. You can't hold other people to the standards that you hold yourself to. And that is a very both liberating and depressing thing depending on how you view it. You will, of course, meet people who are on the same path as you, and that's a very nice thing. It's a very beautiful thing. But most people probably won't be. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with their life path or decisions. And the internet, in the way it is right now, I think we can all agree with this, likes to vilify people who do not live in a certain idealistic way. You don't have a 6-7 figure business, you're living wrong, all these sorts of things, for example. So, my opinion on life now, again, it hasn't changed, because I've always known these things are true, but now, I think it's very, very subjective. I think thinking about success in the future and now is very subjective. Like I say, for me, I do still know what I want. And I don't think that's going to change really, ever. I think I've always tried in my businesses since a very young age. I don't see why that would change. And I think, if anything, it's growing stronger and stronger. Not everybody around you is going to follow that path, is going to like that path, is going to appreciate that path, and is even going to be able to get on side with that path. That is just the truth. Most people probably won't. They'll look at it with a level of just confusion, really. And that's okay. That's fine. But it's a realization of this which changes your mindset. And also, when you meet people who are on that path, you go to certain places, certain areas, certain countries or cities, let's say, or locations specifically, where people do have the same or similar mindset, and you think, okay, so that's just where my people are, right? They're in a different city or place or area. And then you just think, okay, so it doesn't matter, because I can find people who are on side with my message anyway. The lesson that I've learned is, well, there's two main lessons. Number one, you don't need to win anybody round to your way of thinking. And secondly, it doesn't mean that anybody else's way of thinking is wrong, even if it's in a position that they don't want. Because the truth about life, and I'm sure you guys can agree, long term, if you don't like a position, you probably won't be in it forever. And you've got to factor that in when people discuss how they talk about things, right? People who say they don't like their job, let's say, and have never tried another way to make money, let's say, it begs a question at the very least. Anyway, the second lesson that I've learned is that life is short. And like I say, my illness taught me this. I think I'm getting slightly better now, and it is going to be fixed. But at some points, it was a physical illness. I've not really spoken about that part before. It was a physical illness, not a mental illness. I'm sure, I think a lot of people believed it was a mental illness because I said that I had a depressed period. Now, I don't mean that I was depressed, so please don't get me wrong here. Let me explain. Because I was physically ill, I was quite miserable. I wasn't depressed in a clinical... I was just quite miserable because I was ill. So it was a physical illness. Anyway, because of that, it taught me about the main priorities in life. And not enough people do this, right? Everyone's focusing on the future. And I've spent a lot of my time focused on the future. I suppose a good thing about that is I am very well prepared for the future in a way. I've got semi-substantial savings. I've got plans, etc. But life is short. You can't take this for granted. You don't know if you're going to live 50 days or 50 years. And either way, there are experiences now that you could be more present for. And this might sound a bit strange, but I need to explain this given my personal understanding, right? And again, I need to share my personal stories here. And that is me opening up to a lot of different things. It's not bad. It's not particularly, but like in the past, let's say. So I spent, if I'm being honest, when I was thinking about business, so much time thinking about business sometimes and money and how I didn't have that much money that it could impact on the situation that I was in. So I could be out with a friend and see a Ferrari, let's say, and then I want to think about business. How can I start a business? How do, all these different things. When in reality, that's all true. And I still feel that way. I still want to make enough money to have a Ferrari and this and that. But you don't know how long you're going to have anyway. And really, human connections and experiences, sentience in the moment, presence, it doesn't really get much better than that. And I think when we deep that point for a second, the people who you have in your life as friends, as family members, as associates, relationships, whatever, I think a lot of people think that they are going to last for a long time or forever, and they very well might. But this day is never going to come back, right? I don't know what day it is now. We're filming this 14th, 15th, something like that. It's never going to be the 15th of April 2025 ever again. And that doesn't mean that you detract from your long-term goal, but be present where you are, is what I've learned, right? Because a lot of people do not do this, and I've been that person myself. Then you've got certain people where the relationship breaks down, or you don't hang out with that person, or that person's not with us anymore, and you wish that you'd focus on that a little bit more. Also, you don't know how long your time's going to be. And if you were given the ultimatum, and not a lot of people do this, and I didn't do this until recently, not even an ultimatum, but if you were given the scenario, let's say that you were going to die, sorry to make it that deep, but let's just say you were going to die in, we'll say 50 days, right? You do two things when you theorize that. You think about A, what have I done in the past, and what has my life led to? And B, what can I do with the time that I have left? I think that's a very reasonable way to think about this. So what have you done with your life up to this stage? And I don't mean that in a, like, oh, I've got a Lamborghini. Yeah, that's great, but what have you actually done? Who can you call on in these tough times, assuming that you had 50 days left, right? Who could you call on? Who's going to be there for you? What are you going to do to enjoy your time? I know a lot of people who, if, and I don't say this with any sort of meaning or anything, but if they had 50 days left, they couldn't do anything because they've spent so much time focusing on one thing or the other thing and not focusing on anything at all. They couldn't call on any friends to have some last minute adventures. They wouldn't have any money to go on any trips and make some memories. And what's my point, right? My point is this. You could die with $1 million in the bank next week and it wouldn't mean anything if you didn't have some experiences. I went on a few trips this year, as I've semi-documented on this channel. They cost money. They put me money down. Obviously, I could afford it. I factored it all in. It's not an issue. But it put me at a, you could say, financial disadvantage rather than if I'd have stayed at home. And so many people, therefore, would have stayed at home. Put that money into crypto or stocks. Guys, come on. I think you're kind of getting where I'm going here, right? Presence in the moment, doing things. And a lot of people like to make this argument, well, there's two types of people. There's people who do stuff now and think later, and people who think now and do stuff later. And that's not true. That is not true at all. You can do both, right? You don't have to spend money to go out with a friend. If you've got good friends, right, who are attuned to what you believe in and do. I can go out with my best friends, or even with a girl, right, for free. We can go for a walk. We can go for a sit in the park. We can go for a fire, let's say, or have a fire. All these different things. So these are just off the top of my head. Of course, if you have money, you have more options. But presence, guys. Presence is what I've learned. And a lot of people, when they're in a position that they don't like, find it hard to be present, and understandably so, but it does detract from the situation that you are in. Even if you're in rough times, as I have been before, right? This is where it gets funny as well, because I look back at my life, as I say that everybody should. There's been some rough times. There's rough times in everybody's life, so it's not unique, but and I look back at some of those rough times and I actually laugh, or I can genuinely, if I close my eyes for long enough, right, and put myself in that mindset, I can feel how it feels to be back there. And that might sound negative, but it makes you appreciate where you are more. So just appreciate what you've done, guys, because you're all more special than you know. I don't know, guys, that's all I've got to say for this one. Bit of a random video, but a lot of the videos on this channel are. I just share my opinions on stuff. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. See you soon.